Hello, my name is Eliane Gomes Alves. I am a biologist and I work for the Max Planck Institute for Biogeochemistry in Lena, Germany.
I am Florian Wittmann. I am professor at the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, and I'm head of the Department of Wetland Ecology and working for years in the ATTO project.
The Amazon Tall Tower Observatory, ATTO, is a project from a collaboration between Brazil and Germany, and it has an experimental site in the central Amazon. In this site, we have a tall tower, a very tall tower of 325 meters, and two other towers of 80 meters height from which we measure the air. In this same experimental site, we also do research with soils and vegetation. The main purpose of ATTO is to collect information that tells us on meteorological, chemical, and biological processes that represent the forest, the atmosphere, and how they talk to each other. The climate system is influenced by this conversation between the forest and the atmosphere, and we at ATTO want to disclose this conversation in order to better understand natural processes and also to be able to make more accurate climate predictions.
This started between the Max Planck Society, specifically the Max Planck Institute for Chemistry in Mainz, together with the National Institute for Amazonian Research, INPA, in Manaus. And we followed the idea and found a place for the tower, a good place, remote place, but not too remote, and built it, planned it, built it during several years. Well, the main question is how the biosphere interacts with the atmosphere. So, for instance, which kinds of gases, aerosols, whatever, come out of the forest, and how increasingly changing atmospheres interact or influence forest growth and the ecology and the functioning of the forest. So how this interchange between forest and the atmosphere is working.
My research is on the volatile organic compounds emitted by plants. These compounds are known as the forest scent. For you to have an idea of what I mean with forest scent, try to remember when you did smell a leaf of mint. I'm quite sure that you can recognize this scent every time that you are around mint. Similarly, the forest also has scents, which are blends of thousands and thousands of compounds. And there are several reasons why plants release these compounds. They can do so to communicate with other plants, what we call chemical communication, or to repel a predator. For example, some gases are toxic to insects, and once they are released by a plant, they can prevent an insect attack to the plant. And when it's super hot or dry, plants can also release some of these gases to survive. And after being released by plants, these gases get involved into chemical reactions in the air that can transform them into particles, what we call aerosols. This is a very important process in the climate system because aerosols are essential for cloud formation. When clouds are being formed, it's necessary to have two things: the surface and the water vapor to condense on the surface, and then start the process in which clouds grow. Aerosols are the surface where the water vapor condense on, so they work as a seed for cloud formation. My focus is to understand what triggers plants to produce and release these scents, but as I am part of an interdisciplinary team, the results of my research can help the atmospheric scientists to understand the follow-up processes that these scents take part in the atmosphere, as the formation of particles and then cloud formation. what we have discovered is that this blend of compounds change substantially over the seasons. In Central Amazon, we basically have two seasons, the rainy season and the dry season. And as I said, some of these compounds can protect plants against heat and drought. And during the dry season, because the temperature is higher and the air is drier, we have more emission of some compounds. And this is interesting because some studies have predicted that in the future, we will have longer and more intense dry seasons or droughts. So this can give us an indication that plants probably will emit more of these compounds to survive in these harsher environments.
My part, or our part, is more towards understanding the ecology and ecophysiology of trees. So we are not directly involved in atmospheric measurements, but we are involved in the functioning of trees. For instance, during the season, from where trees take their water. If this is different between the different rainforest ecosystems, because we have flooded forests, we have dry forests, we have tall rainforest, and these forests are quite different in species composition and biodiversity and functioning. And our interest is mainly focusing on how these trees are able to track their water sources. And if they are stressed out, for instance, during dry conditions, if there are ecosystems that are more stressed out than others, and also tree species that are more stressed out during drought, for instance, or during inundations. There are hundreds of scientists involved in the research. There are the atmospheric chemists, there are biologists, there are people from all over the globe, from different European countries, from Brazil, but also from the US. So many scientists involved in different research questions, going from soils up to the atmosphere, the so-called boundary layer, where we have still the interchange between local rainforest and the atmosphere closer to the canopy, up to the height of 300 meters. So there are very different scientific questions and scientists involved, studying remote sensing, applying remote sensing, applying biological measurements, climate measurements, and so on.
The logistics staff, which includes the drivers of cars and boats, the staff that works in the maintenance of the experimental site, for example, the tower workers, the cook, the locals from the communities around ATTO. These are people that help us in the field with data collection. For example, a tree climber from the community works with me because he collects the leaves from the tree top that I use for my measurements. And also these locals help us because they teach us many things about the forest, like species of plants and animals. And also we have a lot of researchers and students from local institutions working at the experimental site. ATTO is the biggest project in the Amazon forest that investigates the interaction between forest and the atmosphere. That conversation that I mentioned before. The long-term monitoring of gases like CO2, water vapor, and the blend of plant scents can give information that allows us to see trends in the climate. For example, we can investigate if the forest is being a sink or a source of CO2. The Amazon forest has been considered an important continental carbon storage for the planet. And in fact, the carbon stored in the Amazon forest represents 10 years of the current global carbon emission. And also some past studies have suggested that the forest is a sink of CO2 from the atmosphere. This CO2 sink role is a critical factor in preventing faster rates of climate change. However, A recent study indicated that some regions of the Amazon forest are becoming a source of CO2. And this, together with other effects of climate change, like the increase in temperature and more intense and longer droughts, can contribute to the acceleration of climate change. So imagine if all of the carbon stored in the Amazon forest goes to the atmosphere. That would be really bad. So as the ATTO tower can measure gases that come from very, very far away, as far as 1,000 kilometers from the tower to the east, we can have information from a huge area in the Amazon, and this can help us to understand the interaction between the Amazon forest and the climate now and in the future.
First, of course, is the special situation where we measure mostly pristine forests with little influence of human impact at a very special place in the middle of the rainforest. This is very unique on the one hand. And on the other hand, it brings together, joins all different kinds of researchers and institutions, which of course work interdisciplinary at the international level, and this of course is important to respond broader questions on how, for instance, rainforests may react to climate changes, how resilient these tree species are, and how resistant the entire ecosystem, tropical rainforest, especially in the Amazon, is against the actual global climate change. You know that the rainforest is important for the entire human population, not only for the Brazilians or for the Europeans. It is a very important source of carbon. It is also a very important stock of carbon and biomass. And of course, this cooperation between Germany and Brazil, specifically the Max Planck Society and the Brazilian institutions involved, is because we have long-lasting research programs, bilateral programs that last for more than almost 50 years. So we have intense interchange of national interests here in environmental research, which are the basis actually for the success of that recent ATTO project.